Hello everyone, welcome to this video which is on metaphysical poetry. The term metaphysical poets was coined by the critic Samuel Johnson to describe a loose group of 17th century English poets. It is a revolt against the contemporary fashions of poetry, that means against the outdated conventions of the times. And this metaphysical poetry is beset with conceits, which may be defined as the excessive use of over-elaborated similes and metaphors drawn from the most far-fetched, remote and unfamiliar sources. It revolted against the Renaissance softness, smoothness and sweet expression, and the writers wanted to express new thoughts in a new way. In the view of Walter Scott, the metaphysical poets played with thoughts just as the Elizabethans had played with words. So the metaphysical poets played with thoughts. According to Walter Scott, metaphysical poets played with thoughts as the Elizabethans had played with words. Metaphysical poetry is largely lyrical, and its subject matter is sometimes religious and also amatory. It reveals a union of mind and soul and of thought and emotion, and they copied neither life nor nature. They were great wits, and there is conceits, euphuism, dramatic elements, etc. in the works of metaphysical poets. And their poetry often mixed ordinary speech with paradoxes and also puns. Now, moving on to the major figures of this metaphysical poetry. The most significant poet of the metaphysical school of poetry is obviously John Donne. He was one of the most remarkable literary figures of the Elizabethan age. He was born into a Roman Catholic family in London. He wrote many songs and sonnets on the subject of love, and also wrote many religious poems. The term metaphysical was applied to Dunn by Dryden. Dryden says he affects the metaphysics. What Dryden meant was that Dunn was fond of remote philosophical learning, and he expressed his thoughts in a language marked with conceits. Wit was the main feature of Donne's poetry. A modern critic named Lazyman regarded Donne as the monarch of wit in his book The Monarch of Wit. He used conceits in all his poems. His poetry is actually a revolt against the outdated conventions of the times, and he succeeds in bringing freshness and originality in his poems through the use of extravagant hyperboles and divergent elements yoked by violence together. So the imagery in his poems is drawn from many varied sources as medieval theology, scholastic philosophy, then contemporary sciences, etc. The other notable figures of the metaphysical school are George Herbert, Richard Crashaw, Henry Vaughan, Abraham Cowley, Andrew Marvell, and also the Cavalier poets. George Herbert is generally regarded as the saint of the metaphysical school. He had written a number of poems on sacred subjects. He was a priest, and during his short career as a priest, he wrote lyrics collected in his volume The Temple. Then Richard Crashaw, he also began by writing the verses, and like George Herbert, Crashaw too was closely associated with the Roman Church. Then the next one, Henry Vaughan, he began by writing secular poetry. He was at heart a mystic, and his important works are poems. Then The Retreat is a poem of childhood which influenced Wordsworth in the composition of Odd on Intimations of Immortality. Then about Abraham Cowley. John Milton considered Cowley as one of the three great English poets, the other two being Shakespeare and Spenser. And when Dr. Johnson, when he wrote his lives of the English poets, Dr. Johnson, he began with Abraham Cowley. Then Andrew Marvell was the only Puritan among the metaphysical poets. He was a humanist and also a wit. His poetry is based on the adoration of nature, and he was also an ardent patriot. And relates his own feelings in the longest of his poems, Upon Appleton House. Then To His Coy Mistress was his popular poem. And then the Cavalier poets, Robert Herrick, Thomas Carew, Sir John Suckling and Richard Lovelace are known as Cavalier poets. Except Robert Herrick, all the other Cavalier poets only dealt with secular themes. Robert Herrick wrote both religious and secular poems. These Cavalier poets were lyrical poets, and they dealt chiefly with love, beauty and war. And this is about metaphysical poetry. Thank you.